FSD Pharma Inc. is a Toronto-based publicly traded company whose wholly owned subsidiary, FV Pharma, is a licensed producer under the Cannabis Act and regulations. The company is focused on the development of indoor-grown, pharmaceutical-grade cannabis and on the research and development of cannabinoid-based treatments for several central nervous system disorders, including chronic pain, fibromyalgia, and irritable bowel syndrome. FSD Pharma has 25,000 square feet available for production at its Ontario facility, with an additional 220,000 square feet currently in development. FSD Pharma Inc. is listed on the Canadian Securities Exchange under the symbol HUGE.
In the car, I used to listen to you all.
Yeah. We're just talking about the other thing I do. Anthony Durkacz is here from FSD Pharma. He's the co-founder, co-chairman. I love the symbol HUGE. Anthony, nice to see you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Go ahead, you were asking me where am I now?
Yeah, I used to, when I was
when you were younger,
commuting, driving to work,
yeah.
I used to listen to 102.1 in the morning.
From 1989 to 2001, the Humble and Fred show was on 102.1 The Edge. In 2001, Fred and I, we were at a Christmas party. The president of the company, president of Chorus, walks across the Christmas party and he can say, "Hey, Humble and Fred, I got a great idea for you." And then we went to an AM station, and we've been out there. We've been all over the place ever since.
Wow!
Yeah.
I can't
we were at the Mix. Then we were on Sirius XM. Then we were on. Now we're on a all comedy radio station.
Yes.
All sorts of stuff.
Well, you definitely made me laugh in the past.
Oh, did we?
So.
Well, hopefully this little segment won't be too disturbing for you. Let's talk a little bit about the world of weed. I know there's some announcements. Recently, Sarah May was appointed president of of your company. Well, let's talk a little bit about your company. What do you want people to know about it? Where do you land in the cannabis world?
So we're the shareholders have bought the former Kraft plant in Cobourg.
Wow.
It's a very big facility.
Yes.
So the target has been to turn it into the world's largest indoor grow-op. So not to focus on any outdoor or greenhouse, but specifically on indoor. The reason why we think that's important is because at the end of the day, we believe that, because it's a commodity, the price over time is going to go down, and that the margins are kept best from indoor flower.
Really?
If you're going to sell flower, and we've seen that happening throughout the United States.
Well, I was going to ask you, is that an industry-wide thing? Is that where most of the industry? Because it seems to me a lot of the industry is already indoors.
Well, it's not.
It's not.
So in fact, most of the industry today in Canada is in greenhouse.
So the difference between the greenhouse situation and a completely indoors is you've been able to control it better, or?
Well, so yeah, the beauty is from a quality control standpoint, you will have the exact same repetitive product. You do have some changes in greenhouses in Canada with 4 different seasons. Just where the sun ends up running can cause some changes, and you can create that consistency of which we think is going to be important moving forward, especially in the flower market.
And again, I've had on the show that you've heard of, the Humble and Fred show, we've had conversations for years now about where markets are moving. Is it more medical focused? Is it the rec market? Is it a retail play? So your company, FSD Pharma, is it more therapeutic?
Focused on medicinal values. And part of the reason why I was interested in focusing on medicinal is because I'm a cancer survivor. From just over 20 years ago.
Amazing.
And so,
and 20 years ago, did you avail yourself?
Yeah.
Of some.
There were. I would use it. I found it better to be. It was better for me for pain at that time than taking prescriptions. I don't know if they had oxys back then, but they definitely had Percocets and stuff like that. So, just on a personal level, that's what ended up sort of convincing me. And then now that the more and more that we learn about cannabis and the different molecules, and this is, we are on the forefront right now of what I think is a paradigm shift in medicine. to me, it's like comparing it back to when they discovered penicillin. And when you look and you hear about it, or you read the news, and people say, oh, it's good for pain, and it's good for sleep, and it's good for glaucoma, and it's good for inflammation, and that is true. And there are most people, any of us have probably met someone that claims that cannabis has helped some form of disease that they've had. But it's not like a one-shoe-fits-all. There's still an entire industry, and more scientifically. You can't have the snake oil, salesperson on the street that's giving you an oil that is going to cure your particular type of cancer, because that's not true. We also know that. Sometimes it does, but that was by total chance.
Well, and I love this conversation, because this conversation is similar to other ones that I've had in terms of medical efficacies, and when I'm older than you are. Back in the 1970s, there was just weed. I didn't know. I'd never heard of indica or sativa. So you start to avail yourself of the knowledge, but then you realize there are literally thousands of permutations and applications, and a company like yours focusing on that is only going to. I think it's a great growth idea. Because that's where it's all, like I've said it on this show, I've said it on my show. One day, very soon, they just did a deal with Walgreens in the States, in Shoppers Drug Mart. You're going to walk in there, and there's going to be regular medicine, there's going to be vitamins, and there's going to be the cannabis counter.
Yes.
And you're going to go walk in there with a prescription from your doctor saying, this is the strain, this is the amount, and companies like yours are the ones that are going to be making those available.
We definitely hope so, and we're also seeing the movement that we've seen in Canada in terms of legalization starting to happen in the USA.
Right.
And so I think that opens up just a whole other dynamic and very large door of opportunity.
You think?
On the medical side, yeah. So we think, Who
needs marijuana more than the Americans? Seriously, chill the F out, America. Get high, get rid of the guy. Let's move on. Sorry, just a little.
No problem. And we think when eventually the first step, the Farm Bill was passed at the end of last year. Trump passed it, which means that hemp and CBD is now legal federally in America, and that's very important because now you can create a business where you can open a bank account. You can't do that now in these legal states that are selling cannabis, even though it's state legal, it's not federally legal.
That's right.
That creates a very big challenge. So they're taking in cash, and they can't transact on.
Well, we talked about this yesterday. That's huge news. We spoke to a professor in the States yesterday. This is a huge thing for companies like yours to make these products available.
100%, and at least now that CBD is available, CBD is seen as one of the the molecules that you find either in cannabis and, thankfully, in hemp that have medicinal properties. It's not psychoactive, so it doesn't get you high.
Right.
People believe it has the medicinal qualities. So really, even from someone that doesn't want to get high or feel high, but believes that there's a medicinal quality attached to it, that market could probably be multiple times bigger at the end of the day. And that's just, we think, is the most exciting, and we think that America now is beginning to wake up because that was that first step towards complete legalization. There's, I think, a very, very big business, and we think that there's going to be access to capital that even hasn't been seen before in Canada, and it's been a great 2.5 years so far in this country, but it's just beginning in America.
I just wonder, with companies like yours and people like you that have been working toward, legalization in Canada was just a step along the way, and it may be 5 to 8 years away in terms of universal adoption in the States, or maybe it'll just always be a state-to-state thing. But I think it's interesting that that a company like yours is going to be there to help us dose correctly for ailments. Especially, I would tell you, forget giggling about getting high. We could always get high. It's easy. It's the baby boomers, the 60s and 70s, and into the early 80s that are going to have a different, later stage of life experience.
Absolutely, and even what we found in Cobourg, which is where our plant is. We have the community support and the political. I can't remember the name, but where it is politically, the average person's age, I believe, is in the mid-50s. you know, we're getting a lot of support. I don't know if that support would be there 10 years ago.
I think the support would be there 10 years ago, but people 10 years ago were shy to talk about it. People 10 years ago were shy to share that they were, you know, maybe using marijuana not just for, you know, getting high and watching Netflix. Although It's great for that, I must say. I have this worry though that because I'm going to be 60 next year. Maybe people are watching the show and getting high. Maybe. I know as soon as it's over, I'm going to get high. I just have this idea, this vision of the future where there's a bunch of people, you know, grandmas and grandpas walking around just a bit high, trying to remember their passwords for shit. But your company and companies like yours, I think, are doing great work in that I want to be able to go to my doctor at 68 and say, listen, my shoulder is killing me. I don't want any more anti-inflammatories that it will affect my liver. Yes. Give me something different. And the fact is that something different is going to be available. And it looks like you guys are doing great work with that. And it's, I think, probably going to be, you know, one of the most exciting industries in the next few years. And I think we see people in Canada, because we've now seen this unveiled, and it's happened, and legalization became a reality. Yeah. Maybe a little bit, you know, the party on October 17th, I think, was dampened just because of the challenges on the retail side. Well, for sure. But you know, I think on the medical side, there's just absolutely astronomical opportunities out there, which I would say are going to be hard to find in any other industry in the next 5 years, unless there's a technology that, you know, comes about that we don't know about yet. Well, I mean, there's a bunch of things you just said, like October 17th, where everyone was. In fact, that's the first time I was on the show. October 17th, everyone was excited. October 19th, the government ran out of weed. Exactly. And I remember saying to somebody, they didn't think there was going to be a demand for this? Yes. People have been waiting for years. The other thing is where it's going with edibles and all that kind of thing. Yes. So that's just one stage. We're so far down the road that I'm sure you guys there are things that will come up in the next 5 years that you don't even know now. Correct. For sure. There are things that are coming up now that no one's seen yet in the industry, but you know, it'll begin to become unveiled in the next few months. What about this company? Co-founder, co-chairman, FSD Pharma. It's on the CNSX, HUGE. Yes. Big things. Company's growing. The company's growing. When you leave here, should I just call my broker? I met Anthony. I don't give buy and sell advice ever, because I can't. And our stock has been under pressure lately, and you know, not one of the top performers recently, and we did have some news releases that were challenges that we had to deal with. But today the company is still in phenomenal financial shape and has a very large amount of market valued assets within the company, and has zero debt. And, amazing. And there are a lot of opportunities, but before we were, I think. We would news release things to keep investors informed, and some of that ended up backfiring on us, frankly. And so I think we had to take a step back and think from now on, everything that we're going to put out. Not that nothing's happened. If anyone thinks nothing's happening, that's absolutely not the case. I mean, if you look at my eyes, I hardly sleep, and it's because I'm working, you know, to build shareholder value. I was an investor in your company. I don't want you sleeping. Exactly, and so you know, the whole focus has been, you know, to making sure we do the right things. From now on, we want to completely under-promise, you know, and ultimately, hopefully, over-deliver. But the times are extremely exciting, and especially in the medicinal side, is amazing, and really, I think morally is also a great thing, because you know, this will impact a lot of different areas in medicine. And will give people, I think, a lot of choice or option that, you know, is probably not servicing them well. I have, you know, personal people in my family that, you know, certain painkillers, if they take them, they have all sorts of different problems, whether it's constipation or side effects, or there's all kinds of side effects. Certain side effects. And I think I love that you said that's almost like a moral obligation. There are people who. And oftentimes I used to wonder when I was a kid, you know, if a drug has all these side effects, why would you take them? Sometimes you have to endure the side effects to get some relief. Whereas with the products your company and other companies like yours will make, As I said yesterday, the only side effect of weed is sometimes I want to have 7-Eleven chicken.
It might be a little more than that.
Yeah, I know.
Because there's still a lot of things we haven't found out. But
my chair broke.
But it's the
This is a good look.
Yeah.
No, keep this. I like it. Anthony?
Either I just grew a foot or you just...
I don't know. You know what? It's a Friday show, my friend.
Thank you very much for having me,
guys,
Howard.
can we just put me... There we go. Okay, Anthony, Co-Chairman FSD Pharma, Durkacz, great to meet you.
Sure,
Humble and Fred Show. By the way, if you want to listen to my show, humbleandfredradio.com. Go there, listen, laugh.
I will
come and join us.
I will do that.
Come and join us, Anthony.
Okay. One day I will join you.
I'm going to have you on my show.